you have this property. You're like, okay, I want to start managing other people's properties. How do you go from that to 300 properties in 2 years with $0 spent in advertising?
You can only grow so fast doing single family homes, and your return's only so good. I got presented the opportunity to buy it and ended up being the best investment I've ever made.
It's something that any entrepreneur that has started a company and bootstrapped their way to success has gone through. But then at which point does that no longer make sense? At which point do you need to make the switch?
That's the hardest job, man. Employees are the hardest job.
What allowed you to scale to that level? All right. Welcome everyone to the Hospitality Edge podcast, the podcast where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. Today, I have a very special guest, Riley Goldman, CEO and co-founder at Beachside Vacation Rentals. We're going to be talking about how him and his company went from basically 0 to 300 vacation rental properties under management in 2 years with $0 spent in advertising, which is kind of wild. Riley, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm honored and excited and always good catching up with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Riley, let's start with your story. How do you get started in this hospitality and vacation rental world? I know you had a background in real estate, long-term rentals. Tell us a little bit more about sort of your background and how you stumbled across this industry.
Yeah, so I kind of got into real estate about 8 years ago. Did what most people do. I bought one rental property, then I bought a second rental property, and then I had a mentor, and he told me, hey, you got to get out of single family. You have to get into multifamily units. So got an opportunity. I saw this 8-unit apartment complex. I bought it, and I said, hey, this is right across the street from a beach. I should Airbnb this. And I called up my buddy, JJ King. He, at the time, was at Ventory, is product owner. I was like, hey, will you give me some advice? I want to start doing this as an Airbnb. JJ, being the amazing guy he was, offered, hey, look, let's get you all set up, help me get it all set up. And then I said, all right, sweet. Let's do this. Let's start a property management company. You're working at Ventory. I was continuing to buy units, ended up getting to around 115 units that I own personally. I was like, hey, let's start managing properties. If we add a couple of units a year, sweet. It's a little extra income for both of us. That was in May of 2021 that we actually added our first unit under management. 2 years later, JJ and I were now, as soon as our last building opens up, we'll be right over 300 units. So wow. We grew super quickly, and yeah, it's more wild to me than anyone. Trust me. So.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so there's that all sounds super easy when you describe it like that with a smile in your face. Now we're gonna have to get into the story of how all of that happened, right? So let's start with the real estate piece. So if I'm understanding correctly, when you find that 8-unit apartment building that was sort of your way into short-term rentals, you had already built a massive multifamily portfolio at that point, right? So you were already sort of a real estate investor. Now, from nothing to 115 properties, even if it's long-term properties that you own, there's a big jump there, right? So tell me how that happened, sort of the timeline of how that happened and what allowed you to sort of scale to that level. Was it bringing outside funds and sort of going the syndication route? Was it more so like the buy, renovate, refinance, and sort of repeat BRRRR strategy? Or what kind of allowed you to go from 0 to 115 properties in your portfolio that you owned?
Yeah, so I was blessed. I had amazing parents that gave me a lot of wisdom about saving, reinvesting your money. From the day I turned 16, I had a job and I invested every penny I got, whether it's the stock market or started buying real estate. I bought my first rental property at 20 years old. And we were I was really blessed to have their guidance to invest things. I got a good job after college. I was doing investment finance. I was making good money. I was investing it all. I did a good amount of diversification. I was buying units one at a time at the time. And what kind of really gave me the jump was getting into multifamily. You can only grow so fast doing single family homes, and your return's only so good. And there's such a higher amount of gain when you get into the multifamily route. So first thing I did, I started buying multifamily units. I had an 8 unit, a 10 unit, a couple 12s, and then slowly got bigger to 20, 15. And now I have a good little portfolio of about 115 units. And it's really interesting because as you invest, you build this sense of confidence that you can do it, right? Like when you say, oh, 115 units, that sounds so crazy. But when you buy 1 unit, you feel a lot comfortable buying a second. When you have 2 units, you feel really comfortable doing 4. And when you buy a 10 unit, you really feel comfortable buying 50 more. And it's a confidence thing that you build in yourself that you're like, oh, I can do this. This isn't something that's mind-blowingly crazy, or I don't have to be a super genius. You're a normal human being, and you just have to have that confidence in yourself. So I slowly built that portfolio. I have some partners on things, but most of it, it's either individually owned or with one partner.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my question, right? Because what you said, I love, by the way, you got to start somewhere. And as you sort of take those first steps, you get the confidence to sort of take larger and larger ones. Now, in terms of the tactical component of going from basically scaling that real estate portfolio, okay, couple partners here and there. Did you sort of refinance along the way to sort of buy your next? Was that part of your strategy? Were you more into like seller financing as a strategy in some cases, and sort of like creative financing at all? Or what do you think was the thing? If there's any one thing you can point to that allowed you to kind of get to that level of scale on your real estate portfolio?
Yeah, so great question. Look, I've done a little bit of it all. Sometimes you see an opportunity where you can refinance. Right now, it's not a great opportunity to refinance, rates being high. Now it's really about a time of being unique, finding a unique opportunity. A lot of people don't know you could literally just buy notes right now. So people think, oh man, I can't get into it because interest rates are 7%. Well, that seller has potentially a 2% interest mortgage. Assume it. Be creative with it. Do an owner financing deal where he doesn't pay off the mortgage, you become the note, the liability of the note, and you give him a little bit of interest. Other thing is, I always preach it. I heard this and I have no idea where I heard it, but it rings in my ear. It's, if you find a deal, money will come. So many people are like, oh man, I could never afford that. But they should really have the mentality of, if I find this killer deal, someone will come. Because let me explain something to you. People want to move their money right now. Right now, it's a hard time to invest. If you can bring someone a good deal, someone will want to bring the money. Obviously, I'm a big believer that eventually you kind of want to get away from partners, be 100% in control. But beginning stages, partner with people, whether it's friend, family, real estate investors. Look, I will always, if someone came with the opportunity for me to invest and make a ton of money and the deal looks good, I'll consider anything. Or I might even refer that deal. I might say, hey, this isn't for me. If I have a buddy who's been trying to get into real estate, it's a perfect opportunity for him. And sometimes people feel like it's a sensitive subject, but it's not a sensitive subject. It's something that, hey, we should openly talk about. It should be something that we talk about at the dinner table, in my opinion. Like it's not a sensitive thing. Money isn't a sensitive thing. It's only sensitive if you make it sensitive.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, it's about whether you want to, would you rather have 100% of a grape or a percentage, whatever the stake is, of a large watermelon, right? And it's like, well, get the stake of the watermelon. Cool. And so when you get into the STR sort of side of things, is your thinking like, hey, I just need more cash flow? Like I gotta get more cash flow, so let's give this a try. Was that kind of the thinking with the first 8-unit apartment building there?
Man, it just kind of happened. I saw this run down piece of crap building. And I was like, I got to fully remodel it. And when I was looking at the numbers, I was like, man, if I fully remodel it, I'm not paying my mortgage and I'm not paying insurance. So
Wait, at this point, are you at due diligence? Are you at the due diligence stage, or you've already bought this place?
No, it was at the due diligence stage. I got presented the opportunity to buy it, and I was like, I love the location, and it ended up being the best investment I've ever made. I got in at the right time. I got a low interest mortgage on it. I got a killer deal on the spot. My cap rate on it right now is around 24%. Absolutely insane return. Was absolute blessing. Something that I thank the Lord every day for, that I got presented this deal. And it was really even more of a blessing in disguise because it got me into management. And it's been a fruitful investment, to say the least.
Okay. So you're basically looking at the numbers. You're like, if I just rent it out long term, it doesn't pencil out. I won't pay my mortgage. So short term was sort of the only option there. If you wanted it to cash flow, ended up being a good thing. At this point, though, why do you decide on the management, like you doing your own management? Because being an investor, you could have said, I'm going to buy this place, but I'm going to let someone else manage it. Why did you decide to go into you sort of taking care of the property management as well?
So it really was my partner, JJ King.
Mm-hmm.
He managed 100 units in New York, and he was telling me, man, you could automate this. You could spend 5 hours a week on it, or 5 hours a month on it, if you really do this right. If you set up smart locks and you set up auto messaging and blah, 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 like it'll be a breeze for you. Set up a good cleaning crew that we can automate it for breezeway for you. And I was like, all right, like, let's try it. And I was looking at, man, if I have to pay someone 20%, that really cuts into your gains. You're losing a huge amount. And then the other thing is I knew how much cleaning costs were. And I'm like, well, if I manage it myself, I could have one employee who's just my full-time cleaner. And I was like, I can make a lot of money on cleaning costs, where I would pay that to a cleaning company. So I kind of was like, no, let me do this in-house. And he convinced me, and yeah, we were like, all right, let's start a management company as well. Like, let's manage a few others. I'm already doing it. So
yeah. And so 300 properties later, do you find yourself working 5 hours a week or 5 hours a month?
I hope I have 5 hours to myself a month is the goal.
Yeah.
The exact opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. So in theory, it sounded good. You would automate the whole thing and it would run itself. But in practice, yes, there's some things we can automate, but there's a lot of work, right, that's involved. Okay. So you have this property. It's yours. You're like, okay, I want to start managing other people's properties. How do you go from that to 300 properties in 2 years? Like, what's been the approach? What's been sort of your method of acquiring owners? How have you gone about doing so fast with such a scale?
Man, it's even more wild to me. Like, when I go back and look at it, I'm like, how did this happen? And my partner being at Ventory at the time when we like really started, I was like, is this normal? And he goes, no, it's not normal. Most companies aren't growing at this speed. They're not growing at this pace. And all of it was basically word of mouth. I had a background in real estate. I'm born and raised in the town that I manage in. And it was just super, super word of mouth. A realtor giving me a referral, a friend hearing someone needing a property manager and just calling me up and saying, hey, I saw this post on Facebook that they were looking for a property manager. That's how I got my first unit under management. Said, hey, like, check this out. This guy has it. Was my first client, still my client. Absolute blessing that it happened. And I would say there's no secret sauce. Everyone's like, oh man, like, what are you doing? Like, you haven't spent any money in advertising. It's been build a network. The biggest referral you can get is a word of mouth referral. Like, it's great when someone sees an ad on the internet or they see a flyer in a gym. But when someone tells you you should call this guy, your gut is saying, I should work with him. And we've been really blessed. Our owners refer us. They say, hey, Beachside, they've really treated me well. They put me at the forefront of their decisions. They work their butt off. They go above and beyond. And I think sometimes people think advertising is all about, hey, getting your name out there. And they don't realize the best advertising is letting your work speak for itself.
Now, has part of the strategy also been, because we were talking before we started recording on how you also have like a 90 unit, say, project coming on board, right? So has the strategy also been maybe tackling sort of buildings one at a time where one client represents more than just one sort of property? Is that a component of it, or that's new and the rest is actually single property homeowners?
So it's a little bit of both. We've been blessed. We've had a few opportunities to take on a 15 unit little apartment complex similar to the 8 unit, a 7 unit apartment complex. And I always say it's better to be lucky than good. And we've been really lucky that I now manage a resort that has 72 units, and it's been an absolute blessing. And there's a previous management company. Things kind of fell apart. I was already managing 6 units on site, and I kind of fell into the lap of taking over all those units that they were managing previously. So I was blessed kind of at 60 plus units in one foul swoop. And when I say they contacted me December 1 saying, hey, you want to start on the 1st? I was like, yeah, sweet. You give me a month. We'll start January 1. We'll take over. And then he goes, no, I want you to start December 1. I'm like, today's December 1. He's like, okay, take over. You're managing 60 plus units. And so you kind of gotten lucky in those aspects, but it's just been single owner at a time. And then we've been lucky. We got contacted by a 90 unit apartment complex that he's running as short-term rentals. And we're taking over all 90 of his units, brand new build, beautiful river views. It's on an airport. You see these little, not a big commercial airport, but you see these little planes take off going over the river every day. It is absolutely amazing. And it's going to be a very fruitful investment for the owner.
Wow. No, that's very interesting. Now, in terms of, let's say you're a property manager, right? That's listening to this. Let's say we're talking to that property manager that's sort of looking to scale. If you put yourself back on that position when you were starting out, right? What do you think gave you the confidence to go out there and sort of knock on doors or welcome those sort of inquiries and sort of go after those big deals that, because there's this imposter syndrome that any entrepreneur has felt when you're starting out a company, because it's like you have this great vision of this great company that you can become, but you're not, when you're starting out and you're signing your first owner, you don't have that infrastructure already. Like, you're not that company. So what do you think allowed you to sort of go out to the market and have that confidence that has allowed you to eventually deliver and get to sort of where you are today? How did you overcome that imposter syndrome, or did you just not have it?
Oh man, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit about convincing yourself to have the confidence that, like, hey, I'm going to go out, and just being honest with people. I remember my first sales call. I don't manage any units, but I'm going to work my hardest for you. And I might make mistakes, but I'm going to go above and beyond. And if I make a mistake, I'll own up to my mistakes. And you talked about, like, hey, how do you go into that sales call for that 90 unit? How do you go in that sales call for that 15 unit? Like, they called 5 other companies. You're going against Vacasa. You're just going to go way underneath what you're going to quote them. They're going to tell you 12%, and you're going to say the best I can do is 20. How do you compete against that? And it's, at the end of the day, it's, people love honesty and authenticity. And I think I'm the most authentic human being out there. I'm wearing a t-shirt, and I just had a huge sales meeting. I was wearing a t-shirt with a pink croc on it. And I'm just myself. And people love when they're talking to someone who's just very authentic, very real. They don't feel like they're in a sales call. I got to bartend for 9 years. I did it on the side for a long time. And the one thing I realized is when you're in a bar, you see all sorts of people, low income, high income. And what you realize is everyone's a human being. And when you go into a sales meeting, don't look at him as, hey, oh man, this guy owes 15 units. I really got to impress him. Hear him, listen to him, embrace what he wants to say or she has to say. What are her goals for the property? What is she looking for? Most of the time, within 5 minutes, what an owner wants. And you can say, this is what I'm going to give you to feed your desires, your needs. Where a lot of companies, they think, oh, I got to sell my product. I would say almost every sales call, I speak 90% learning about that human being and their enjoyments and their hobbies in life, and 10% on business. Because if you can establish a form of trust, whether it's, hey, I coach high school basketball and we're talking about the Orlando Magic, RIP, because they got knocked out this series. But if you talk about the Orlando Magic and he knows something, he says, oh man, Riley's a smart guy. I can trust him. Oh, he's a nice guy. And I think it's all about establishing that trust in that sales process. And yeah, there's imposter syndrome too. Like, how am I going to figure that out? Every day I get attacking a problem and I'm saying, I have no answer to this, but I'll figure it out. I'll work hard. I'll get through it. So I guess.
Tell me about that mindset though, because it's on your shirt actually, and you were referring to your shirt. I love when I saw it in New Orleans. I really liked it. I'll handle it is what it says. What does that mean to you and your company? Why is that part of your shirt?
So it's a little bit of a gag joke for my employees because whenever something needs to be done, I'll always just say, I'll handle it. But they'll be like, oh man, I have this wrong. Oh, I'll handle it. So it's a little bit of a joke, but we have this mentality and this kind of core value of be a problem solver. Like, don't just run into a problem and give up. Figure it out. Like, handle it. Do what it takes to get the job done. Like a lot of people, they face a roadblock and they're like, oh man, like, what am I going to do? And it causes stress. I always say there's no such thing as an issue in business. There's only situations that you have to resolve. Issues have negative connotations. Situations, here's a situation. What is the problem? Don't get emotional about it. Don't cry about it. Don't stress about it. Here's a situation. There's a solution to every situation. You just gotta find it.
It's out there. Just find it and handle it. I love that. I love that. That makes sense. Now, tell me something in terms of you as a founder, right? And as a CEO, your role has evolved, right? From the moment you started to where you are now, the role of a CEO of a rapidly growing company is it has to evolve, right? Because at first you might not have an entire team behind you, so there's certain pieces of the work that you have to do yourself, versus with time you started maybe outsource certain things or bring certain key hires that are going to take the lead on those day-to-day tasks. How has your journey of sort of growing as a CEO of this management company, what has that journey looked like when you first started? Where were you spending most of your time, and what are some of those sort of key milestones or steps along the way where you've sort of delegated certain things and started to focus in other areas, perhaps more strategic areas or perhaps more growth oriented areas? What has that journey looked like for you as a CEO?
Oh man, it's been a little bit of an emotional journey, to be honest. So I was touching on core values, and one of my core values that I've kind of always had that kind of got raised to me by my parents and just a few mentors in my life is have a strong work ethic and don't be too good to do anything. I remember when I first started with the 8 units and having a few other units, I used to go to the laundromat at 4 a.m. in the morning and do laundry because it was the only time the laundromat wasn't busy, and I would do all the laundry myself. And it wasn't reasonable for the cleaners to do it at the unit. They couldn't get it done in time. And I made a huge mistake in not buying quilts, and I was buying these huge comforters that were a pain to clean. So I had to wash it at the laundromat. So it's a little bit, and I was doing everything: guest messaging, scheduling the cleaners, maintenance, you name it, I was doing it. And it was hard to adjust to becoming like a true CEO of being like, oh man, there's a problem. I should just go handle it. And giving things up like, oh, what if they mess up? But I really accredit, I hired my first girl. Her name was Stephanie. I believe you met her, Burma. She was a rock star from day one. And she became kind of a little bit of everything. We call her GSD, get shit done. She got shit done. And it gave me trust to delegate. I mean, so then I hired my friend to do guest messaging and get rid of guest messaging in my life. And now he's my guest service manager, and he's starting to learn to delegate and have people underneath of him doing guest services. And it's really hard because I really grew up of like, hey, if there's a problem, don't be too good to handle it. And then understanding like the value of your time. Like, hey, a unit's dirty. Why don't I just go clean it and save $80 or go help this cleaner? But then you realize like, well, I could have made this deal happen that made me $20,000 this year. And instead, I missed that deal doing a 3-hour clean that saved me $60. $20,000, $60. And it was a little bit of a hard time just because it's like, I feel like I was like not doing anything by just being kind of that air traffic control guy for my company and delegating things out. But then I end up realizing like, hey, it's a better fit for my company. My company doesn't need me cleaning a unit. They don't need me putting a towel bar back on the wall that fell off. They need me leading them, putting in a position so that they can succeed and elevate themselves. And now I've really gotten into kind of a quasi role of CEO and COO role right now. So I do a lot of business development that like kind of the CEO does, and sales, kind of growing, networking, blah, blah, blah. But I do a lot of coaching. So like, I'm not doing anything physically operations wise, but I love spending time with my operations manager and discussing things. How can he improve? And kind of being that CEO or COO, holding them accountable, holding my department heads accountable to do the job. And that's the hardest job, man. Employees are the hardest job because everyone needs to be coached differently. Everyone needs to be taught differently. Everyone needs different emotions. Some people you can't yell at. Some people need to be yelled at if they're doing something wrong. And it's been a fun journey. I've changed so much in the past 2 years. It's insane. Having 80 employees, it's 80 families to feed and 80 different people to think about, worry about, respond to when they need something. It's demanding, and it's been a very fun, exciting role, and I'm starting to get more and more comfortable with it every day.
No, that's key, I believe, that transition of, well, first of all, when you're starting out, no doubt you're gonna have to do a little bit of everything. So that mindset that you're talking about of like, no, nothing is gonna be too small for me to do. I think that's crucial, and it's something that any entrepreneur that has started a company and sort of really bootstrapped their way to success has gone through. But then it's sort of that conversation of, okay, well, at which point does that no longer make sense? At which point do you need to make the switch from, and there's, I think, a book that's called something like that, going from the what or the how to the who, right? Going from what needs to be done, how can I do it, to, okay, who can I put in place to do this thing, and who can do it better than I. Now, the other piece to what you said that I want to highlight is the time value. Well, the value of your time, right? How much is your time worth, type of thing, and where should you be spending that time? Growth. I think you mentioned the two areas that are the most important at some point for a CEO type of leader to be spending most of their time on: growth and people. At the end of the day, how do you grow and how do you take care of your people and coach them and develop them and hire the right people? So now you say you've changed a lot over the last 2 years. Where, like, if you were to point and put your finger on what characteristics or what skills you think you've developed and for the best or for the worst on during the last 2 years. What do you think that is? Where do you think you have changed?
So I would say my mentality of understanding how to separate business and your emotions. And I'm not saying be like a absolutely like soulless human being. That is the last thing I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is it's like the book Radical Candor does it absolutely beautifully of, hey, how do you be a nice boss that still holds people accountable? Like, how do you criticize an employee who's not getting their job done, but not demeaning them? And being able to say, hey, I'm your best friend, but the second we talk about business, it is about business. I will tell you did a great job if you did a great job, and I will tell you this is subpar work, and it's subpar work. At the beginning, it was hard. I never wanted to hurt people's feelings or blah, blah, blah. But I realized at the end of the day, my goal is to make sure that I'm helping someone elevate themselves to the top potential. And it's a hard task. And sometimes you need tough love. Like, you need to tell them, like, hey, you didn't do a good job on this. And it's okay. Like, as a human being, I'm not mad at you. But I'm saying this work that you put out was not you. You need to be better than this. This is a standard that our company holds it to. And not being afraid to have that conversation. So that's been like one area I've grown a lot. And two, the other thing that I would really just say has just been absolutely huge for me is understanding that there's something bigger than business. At the end of the day, it's about building a network and loving others and hearing others. And if you want to go far in life, build a huge network. Like, don't focus on, what am I going to do to add units? No, focus on what do I need to do to add my network? And as you add your network, people come to you. I signed up 15 units the other day because I built a relationship and then they referred them to us. And it was just, hey, he's doing a great job. So many people are like, oh, add units. Like, no, don't worry about that stuff. Worry about growing your network and the world will work for you. And don't just be a fake person. I mentioned realness and authenticity earlier. Be a real human being. Actually care about your clients. Actually want to see people succeed. Actually care that your employees are doing the best job for them and for the company. Don't just say, oh, this is what I need to do, because I'll burn out. And naturally, people are smart and they'll see through it. They'll see that, oh, they only care about growth. They don't care about me. And invest in your owners. You'll retain your owners. People talk about how much money you gain by adding units. How much money do you lose losing units? And invest at that time. And I think that's one thing that I've really grown on is understanding that network is the most important thing, not business. And your business will grow with your network, not vice versa.
No, that's great. That's great. That mindset on the importance of building your network and how sort of things come your way afterwards. Now, you talked about retention, and I want us to touch on homeowner retention because, to your point, it's key, right? You can add as many properties as you want if you cannot deliver on your promise and one thing is delivering on your promise and doing the right work, doing it right. And then the other element is showing to the owner that you're doing a good job, because you could do a great job but not present it to the owner or not show it. And sometimes we would hope that good work speaks for itself. But sometimes, especially when we get into the world of doing revenue management and things of that nature, like sometimes it doesn't speak for itself. Sometimes you need to explain to your owners the work that's being done. So I'm curious to know, especially with the kind of fast growth that you've had, how have you been able to sort of manage the actual retention piece on the back end? The actual, hey, yes, we're adding all of these units, but we need to maintain certain standards of quality. And it's not because we want to go fast that we will sacrifice on the quality. How have you approached sort of just quality standards and retention as a whole?
Yeah, man, it's the toughest part about the business. Like when you're growing so fast, you could build a system that works for 50 units, but doesn't work for 75. And when you get to 75, 2 months after you hit 50, you're like, well, this isn't good. I just outgrew my office space I just moved into, and I have a year lease. I don't have the laundry equipment to do all the laundry. There's a million things. And something we've really emphasized this year is top-notch quality service control. We have an inspection, and you talked about kind of, hey, how do you make sure the owners know that you're doing good work? And one thing that we've started doing and implementing is once a month, we do basically a 100-point inspection of their home, photos, everything, and then we send it to the owner. And they see, hey, this guy took 2 hours going through my house, digging for problems, making sure that everything's good. And that has been the best investment I could have ever made. The homeowners love it. We're catching problems before guests do. We notice that if something needs to be done soon, we're saying, hey, look, and here's a photo. We should probably replace this chair soon because it's starting to rip. It's not a huge deal now, but I guess 6 months from now might be asking for a refund because this looks like crap. And that's been such a huge one because then the owners are like, man, he's looking out for my behalf. And that's been a huge one. And I was always preach it, pick up the phone. Like, just pick up the phone, call your owner. Pick up the phone. If there's an issue, call. Like, owners love being communicated with. And sometimes an owner cares more about knowing what's going on than they do the situation. And most times we only call with bad news. Call with good news. I got a really good booking for one of my units. I called the owner today and I said, hey, just so I got this killer booking for you. And that hearing someone call you with positive news, not just negative news, makes a whole difference. And reaching out to them. And now we started doing monthly newsletters to our owner, giving them an update of things that we're doing to improve the company. People want to be in the know. That's all they care about. And little slight touch points. We always talk about touch points for the guest. What about touch points for the owners? What can we do to give the owners touch points so that they feel like they're taken care of? And I know a lot of people are probably listening saying, oh man, this guy's full of crap. Like, who has time for that? And make it. When you're on your car drive from picking up your kids to school, pick up the phone and call an owner. Spend 8 minutes on the phone with them. And they understand you're busy people and they appreciate if you said, hey, I just want to, everything's doing well. We're doing an inspection at your property next week. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And hey, we all have time for that. Set time to invest in your owners, right? Hey, it's just as easy to add a unit and make $30,000 as is to lose a unit, lose $30,000. So why not invest time, energy, money to keep your owners?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Wow, I love how tactical we went there on some of those strategies. That I think, from letting them know once a month, hey, we did an inspection and here's what we found, to just picking up the phone and touching base with good news rather than bad news all the time. I think that's awesome. And people need to realize that this is a way to grow. This is not only a way to grow, but this is necessary in the sense that you can double your business by doubling your number of properties, or you can double your business by doubling the lifetime value of an owner. And how do you do that?
100%.
You make them stay twice longer in your program. And how do you do that? Well, you do what Riley just said, and you build a relationship, and you spend the time needed to make sure that you're doing a good job, and they're aware of the fact that you're doing a good job. Now, let's go into another topic here, which is this whole concept of, as you grow, you could have taken the approach of saying, hey, let me go and start opening new markets. let me go and start you sort of developing, yeah, exactly, new territories, etc. You've sort of said, well, why don't we focus on developing new verticals instead, and being sort of vertically integrated and opening different sort of business units that complement each other. Tell us a little bit more about that strategy and why you think that makes sense in your case.
Yeah. So it really started because of Brooks House book from Vintori. He wrote the book, hey, like secrets of vacation rentals. And he asked 10 questions, secrets of what they should or should not do for property manager. And I remember reading over and over again, every property manager saying, it's not as easy opening up into another market as you think it would be. And I wish I grew my business in one market than before I went out and grew. So I kind of have the mentality that, hey, until I absolutely dominate a market, and dominating a market's 70% of the portfolio. If there's 1,000 units in your market, you should be managing 700 before you should even consider moving to another market. Like there's just so much room for you to grow in-house. You don't have to start new operations. But to kind of touch point on what I've decided to do a little bit differently is I think about, I have 50 pools that I service. And the average unit person is spending $200 a month in pools. That's $10,000 a month in pool service that is being paid by my customers. I can employ someone for $3,000 and service all those pools. And not only that, I'm not communicating with 30 different pool companies that these people decide to hire. If there's a problem with the pool, it is my fault and I take ownership of it and I fix it. Where vice versa, I'm calling this pool company and say, oh man, our pool guy was sick. He couldn't go out. Sorry, we're not coming until next week. What kind of answer do you have for the guest? Being able to say, hey, I take responsibility for the things that I went wrong. And not only that, I have a customer base right away. I could be making $7,000 a month. That's almost $100,000 a year of income that I could make by hiring one person. And I have another employee who 50 pools, it's probably not even a full-time job for. He could do other things for my business. So one, I'm providing better customer service for my owners. Two, I just created an income producing aspect of my business rather than commissions. Three, I can continue to grow that company outside of my business, which gives me protection of if short-term rentals ever got banned in my area, or if there's a slowdown in the market, and a million different things. So we have on the roadmap, and our goal is to every 90 days launch a new subsidiary of our business. We already have laundry in-house. We already have cleaning in-house. But over the next 90 days, our goal is to start servicing hotels for laundry. Our goal is to start being a cleaning service company for commercial properties. So HOAs, etc., things that are a little bit less random and more so consistent work so that we can give our cleaners extra hours in case it's a little slow during the slow time of year. They still get work. They still get full-time hours. And we started, hey, we just hired our first pool technician. He just saved us $800. He just saved one of our owners $800 being able to fix a pool pump that a pool company requested, tried to charge $1,200 for. We fixed it for $400. Do you think that made the owner happy? 100%. Second thing is we're going to start going into plumbing. I already have a plumber in staff, but we're going to open up a plumbing company. We're going to get into ACs. Our biggest problem in Florida is AC is always going out. Hey, we're going to start an AC company over the next 180 days is our goal. And building businesses that we already have the clientele for. So we know it's going to be successful. I already have 300 clients. Most people, when they start a business, have 0 clients and they're grinding from nothing. No, I have clients right away. And on top of that, I already have a network and I'm tapping into that network I already have. Most people are going to a new location, knocking on a door, and they're saying, who are you? Why should I work with you? You have no network there. And you have to build this network from nothing. Where I'm working on starting a painting company as well. That's kind of one of our 90-day goals. I had my real estate agent. I was like, hey, by the way, I'm starting a painting company. I have 2 employees right now, but we'll slowly grow. She goes, oh my God, I have a house I need you to paint right away. Got a $4,000 job, literally right away. And those are things that you do internally. And we're really excited because we want everything to be in-house. We want to be a one-stop shop. We want to be in control of every aspect. We can send out a guy on Saturday at 9 a.m. to go fix an AC issue for a guest that came in the middle of the night. And we're not getting our owners charged $400 for a weekend service call. The owners are happy. I'm making money. I'm employing great people. What more could you ask for? And what? It's not risky. You have the business right away. And that's kind of been my route, something we're really passionate about, really excited about. And I'm really excited by 2025, basically having 5-6 companies underneath Beachside.
That's very interesting, especially the mindset of, hey, you're starting a new company with an existing clientele already. I really think that's key there in sort of this approach. Now, I would say there's 2 schools of thought out there, or there would be people that think if we did that, we would be sort of spreading ourselves too thin, not on the market and the geography side of things, but on the skill set and what is it that what are we, right, as a company, and what's our core sort of competency, and are we getting ourselves distracted in a way by sort of trying to cover so much? I'm curious to know how you think about that, like how you think about, yes, tackling those opportunities or going after them, but in a way that it doesn't end up sort of affecting your core business or distracting your team, or using the resources that are limited and sort of ending up just spreading them too thin, right? What do you think is the key for you to sort of accomplish that, right? That vision that you have of sort of being vertically integrated with all these different business units, but without sort of ending up hurting your core business?
Yeah. So, man, that's a tough question. It's been something I've prayed about, thought about, etc. And at a point, you get to a level in your business where you get out of the day-to-day, right? So I am basically almost 90% out of the day-to-day at Beachside. And when you get to that point, that's when you're a person like me, where your brain just starts like getting like, oh man, what's next? And it's been something we've prayed about, thought about, but I think at the end of the day, it kind of reverts to customer service, right? So it's like, if I do this, I'm going to provide my people or my owners way better customer service, because it's, hey, if a pool issue with a pool, have someone, hey, I need you to handle this right away. Go, boom. You call a pool company, they might not say, oh man, I can't get a technician out for 3 days. So I think that's where it's an investment, because it's, hey, it's helping you retain owners. So you kind of got to look at it as an investment. And the second thing is getting stretched too thin. And that is a very, very serious thing to consider. That like, it's, hey, we all get stretched too thin. And at the end of the day, you got to have a goal and a roadmap of how to do it. So something that we've really focused on is having a 90-day goal and writing out that roadmap over the next 90 days to get there. And remember, it's vertically integrated. A pool company, you're servicing your units right away. It's not like it's just randomly hurting you and it's a distraction completely in left field. And you just got to ask yourself, is this in left field, or is this going to make my management company better in the end of the day? And that's kind of how we had the mentality. I think about, hey, we had to refund $3,000 to guest fees because pools weren't clean. We could have saved our owners $3,000 in the month of March. And
right, it's complementary. It complements your core business too, right?
100%. Yeah. Now, if it doesn't complement it, then you might have to ask yourself, well, how does this help my business? And if
Hmm.
you can't make a pros and cons of, does it help my business more or hurt my business more? If it's hurting your business more, then what, you throw that idea out the road and have a partner like I do, who's a little bit of a negative Nancy, and say, oh man, that's going to be too much work. And if I can convince him to do it, then it's a good idea. So,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
love it. So there's two more things that I want to cover. Sort of, we're getting to the end here. This has been super fun, and I would keep you here for hours if we had the time. But got to put an end to this at some point. Uh, you talked about mentors that you've had along the way, and I'm curious to know what do you think that having mentors has sort of done for you personally, and what how has that allowed you to sort of grow faster, achieve bigger things, or whatever that might be, not making the mistakes that they made. So where does that sort of idea of having mentors comes from for you? Was it luck? Was it just kind of stumbled upon them? And is it something that you did at some point and you're no longer doing, or is it something that you did worked for you and then you're still at this point of your career sort of always having someone that you consider to be a mentor for you?
Yeah. So you said it about not making mistakes. Mentors, they give you advice, and I think you can learn more from not making mistakes someone's made in the past. And I think that's the biggest value of mentors is avoiding the mistakes that someone else did. Hey, I did this and it really hurt me. And being able to see that and process it. And sometimes people give advice and, hey, that's what they would do, but it's a little bit different. Like they don't understand what your goals are. Your goals are a little bit different. But being able to see what people made mistakes on, that's real learning thing. So the saying you win or you learn, I think it's very, very true. Like, hey, take that loss that someone else had and don't let it be a loss for you. So,
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. All right, Riley. Well, listen, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you if they want to stay in touch?
oh man, email me. That's the best way. Or LinkedIn, Riley Goldman on LinkedIn or Riley at beachsidevr.com. Feel free to email
Good.
me and we can connect. So,
Awesome. Awesome, Riley. I look forward to seeing you in Austin for the IEMN coming up soon. And thank you so much for taking the time. This was super fun. And I think there's some real golden nuggets for operators out there that I look forward to sort of putting this out there and getting it going. This was super fun. Thank you, Riley, for your time.
yeah, thank you for having me on anytime, man. So, looking forward
Take
to
care.
seeing you.